Educating, informing, serving. Fact TV, keeping government honest.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Tuesday, April 19th, 2022. We're in the lower theater at 6 p.m. There is a Zoom link on the agenda that was posted on the website. So that being said, I will call the meeting to order. And the first order of business is to approve the minutes of April 5, 2022. They were sent electronically, and I think we're supposed to get copies tonight.
Yeah, I do have it. Does anybody need extra ones? I did make a set. I also sent them around to everybody's email. I don't know if anybody had a chance to grab them.
So if everybody's had a chance to look at them on the internet. Yep. Take a motion to approve or disapprove.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of April 5th.
And a second.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the minutes April 5, 2022. Further comment, suggestions, corrections, or deletions? Omissions? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor would say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries.
I'm gonna stay because I wasn't here.
Yeah, I have to.
You didn't get to read them.
I read them, but I don't know where it is. Actually, I did get to watch I watched the broadcast. I think it's pretty accurate.
Okay, additions to the agenda for routine administrative matters and or pressing matters that will require ratification at a future meeting. I have none. Any from the board? Scott? No. Moving right along then to public comment on items not on the agenda. 3 minutes per person. No one from the public here. No one out there on Fact TV outside of Betsy Thurston and Susan Small here. Any comments? Hearing none, we'll move on to the manager's report.
Thank you. Just a couple items just for general information. Our friends at the DOT are going to be doing some rock ledge work around exit 6 off of 91 on the southbound exit ramp. So that work is summer work. You might see a little bit of lane activity. They might be doing some minor blasting through there. So that always gets people excited when they start hearing noises. But it should not be a major project. But just in case anybody's asking, they will have a field office out there at School Bus Depot Road and Rockingham Road. So you might see some activity between now and October. It seems like a fairly low impact project, just more for an FYI that they'll be out there and something just for people to be aware of. I'm passing around, this is 2 copies of a grant that is being applied for from Fact TV and Art in Rockingham Entertainment. And it's an interesting grant that they want to do in conjunction. It's a digital entertainment. And
Multiple pages.
yeah, it's 2 different copies. So we don't have any particular cost associated with it. They would be potentially using part of our Opera House to support this program, but what it'll give them is an opportunity to do digital programming, outreach, be able to offer some courses and some other things. It supports Fact TV's mission to try and extend some of their programming. So it was a good opportunity. Since it doesn't require a match from us, at this point, all we're in is just to support their application and wish them well in the process. But I wanted just to pass around a copy just for the board's information, and we'll certainly keep you in the loop if they're successful at receiving this grant. So it would be a good opportunity for the community if we were selected for that. So those are the,
It's a nice grant. I've applied for it for the Historical Society too.
yeah.
And it's it's for digital capacity.
I think Main Street Arts is also.
And Main Street Arts, I think, is also a co-applicant.
Yeah, this collaboration is Fact, RAMP, Main Street Arts, Red, and the Flatiron. All of them.
So, hopefully, like I said, if they're successful, it'll be a nice project and a nice opportunity. And we'll certainly come back and let you know how things are going to go as it moves forward. So. That's it.
You all set?
Yes.
All right, move on and open the agenda up. First item is the meeting of liquor commissioners. We have a request from Flatiron Cooperative, which was not in our packet, but I have the original
I think did you guys get a copy of it?
copy. I don't have it in my packet.
No.
No.
Because they were copied.
I didn't even get to it in it, the email, so.
Okay.
So they're looking for first-class license and an outside consumption permit. You can get this form right now. There doesn't seem to be anything missing on it.
For outside consumption, just means on their premises there.
Yeah, that's all they can do. 12/6 area on the north side facing the square. It's written right on there. Outside consumption permit request. So, that being said, I'll entertain a motion for.
I move that we approve the license for the Flatiron Cafe
And that's for our first class and outside consumption.
for first class and outside consumption. That's the license.
Do we hear a second?
A second.
Okay. Motion made and seconded to approve the first class license and outside consumption permit for the Flatiron Cooperative. All those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Come around for signatures. There are the 2 copies. Okay, we don't have to sign the consumption permit because that's the town clerk that does that. so.
Right.
Get that started around. All right, next order of business is the cemetery maintenance bid award. It's a note in your packet plus the RFP and the returns. We had 2, I guess, Scott.
So finally, I know we spoke not too long ago and told you that the first round of submissions for this, we had gone out and I actually contacted a bunch of companies to see if they were interested in bidding, and we received no bids. So we did some follow-up and we were able to secure 2 bids this time through. We have a new potential awardee here who is also fairly local. They're just across the river over in North Walpole. So we had some issues with discussing with Malcolm with last year's contract. So if the board approves this tonight, I've already been in touch with Malcolm, sent him the information, and then we'll meet with the contractor before we start the spring cleanup. So hopefully we'll avoid some of the issues we were having with our last contractor. So the pricing is in line with what we had budgeted, and they have the capacity to take on the work, which is all good news. So at this point, I think recommendation is we accept the bid from Brothers Land Management, and we'll see how they perform for 2022. And we do have an option if we want to renew for 23. That's a mutual option, and we'll talk about that after the season and see how they perform. So.
Okay. We can motion on the floor to accept bid from Brothers.
Second that motion.
Okay. Any discussion? The only question that you were going to get together with Malcolm and
We're gonna meet,
Chris, and
yes,
make sure they understand what's supposed to get done, so we don't have issues that arose last year with the other.
right. So once you guys do the award, I'll get a hold of Brothers and Malcolm, and we'll do a meeting, make sure everybody's on the same page. So hopefully
We
we're
had
gonna
a
have
chance to check them out, see who they were.
Yeah, I've made some calls. They seem to have solid references, so.
I'm just wondering how this works, your whole process, because it looks like they're on $1,000 higher than the other bid.
The other contractor was the previous year's bidder, and when you look at all of his submissions, it actually is slightly cheaper to go with the Brothers. We
Okay,
did have a lot of issues with them.
Okay, so that's the group that you
So
want
in
to work
combination,
after.
right,
Okay,
we thought it made sense to
yeah,
try this new vendor.
understood.
Any further questions, suggestions? Hearing none, all those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. You will notify the
I will, thank you.
gentleman and get that done. Okay, next item on the list is the annual appointments. There's a bunch listed on the page. But there also is a listing in your packet, and the ones marked with an X are the ones that we need to appoint tonight. There are some notes, and in your packet, there are some letters as to some people that are interested and those people that resigned. So we'll be looking for a couple of them. So, first one we get to is BFADC. Currently is Susan Hammond and Elijah Zimmer.
I don't mind staying on.
Pardon?
I don't mind staying on
Okay, Elijah, you want to stay on there?
unless anybody else wants to jump on.
Okay, somebody make a motion to appoint Sue and Elijah to the BFADC.
I move that we appoint Susan Hammond and Elijah Zimmer to the BFADC.
In a second,
I'll second that.
motion made and seconded to appoint Susan Hammond and Elijah Zimmer to BFADC committee. All those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Okay, I move that we appoint Malcolm Potter, municipal manager, as cemetery secretary.
Okay. I'm just gonna speak to the bike ped committee. We only
Oh,
had,
wait, sorry.
that's right, we only, it's not marked because I didn't know if we wanted to appoint anybody. We only had two from.
That's all I've received.
Vermont. One was a Saxon River resident. And I think, is it the other one from Saxon River also?
Yeah,
or-
both secretary.
Mhm.
So if it's the desire of the board, we can appoint those two.
And we're
And-
gonna afford a board member, one board member, or no, I can't remember. what
I
we decided.
think
You
we
did.
were-
You did.
I volunteered.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I was gonna say, I thought Rick had volunteered. Yeah, Marcia Stern is from Fellows Falls. And Dan Telstra, I hope I got that right. From Saxon River. So what's the pleasure?
I move that we appoint Stan Telstra and Marcia Stern to the BF Bike Committee,
And Rick has volunteered, you want to put him on there also?
and also Rick Cohen as the select board representative.
It was unclear, Bonnie was also interested in serving, or if she just had brought it up as a,
I'm a key member.
right.
I think she
just-
wanted to, yeah.
Yeah, I just,
Um,
I think she did too, I just didn't,
We weren't limiting it to Rockingham residents.
That's what our intent was to have Rockingham residents only on there.
Oh, that's
And
right.
She was
lives
gonna
in
go to
Westminster.
Westminster
Yeah.
Right.
and see about getting a committee or getting some sort of permission, I guess, to operate a committee down there. So
Oh,
we
that's
had her back the first meeting she went to, and she said they canceled the meeting, so I don't know. And of course, now there are people down there with no manager, so.
it's gonna be a while.
They declined to start, have the.
Oh, they did?
Sponsor. Well, you can go do it yourself if you want to, but they declined. Which was a surprise. But so that means that we really put clarity on our committee.
Okay.
Well, I mean, did we decide against anybody from Westminster?
I think it was just our preference.
Yeah.
But, we we have had other committees, I know the Opera House Committee has had non-town members.
I feel like she's someone who does have a stake in the,
She's got a business here.
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
office here.
it's, I feel like she's qualified.
Yeah, I think it's entirely appropriate.
Yeah.
And she only moved out of the village to take care of her mother who then has gone.
Yeah, she has presence in the village with her.
Oh, sure. So I moved that Bonnie Anderson be appointed to the board.
Second that.
Okay. Motion remains seconded to appoint Rick Collins, Stan Telstra, Marcia Stern, and Bonnie Anderson to the Bike Ped Committee, which will leave one vacancy unless we don't get anybody. We had originally planned for 5. So 4 and outsiders and 1. So that being said, that was been said, can I get a second? It was already second. All those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Now we'll go to the cemetery section. And she nominated Malcolm Potter and the municipal manager as the alternate.
I'll second that.
Been made and seconded to appoint Malcolm Potter and municipal manager to the cemetery committee as sexton. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next one is going to be the Connecticut River Joint Commissions. It's currently it's Margaret Perry and Tom Hernan. I haven't heard from either one of them that they are not interested, but I understand that Margaret Perry may have some health issues that may limit her participation. Maybe looking for someone in that category.
I'm not actually familiar with the Connecticut River Joint Commission.
So you want to appoint both of them and see what happens?
He wanted to know what it does.
Yeah.
Commission is.
The Connecticut River, they was conform, that was formed when another resident in Rockingham tried to put a sand pit in, a gravel pit in on his property. And these two people started a community effort to stop him from putting the thing because of issues with the properties, landslides, and things like that sort, and going into the river. So they got a joint commission up to do that, so.
Is Walpole the other half of that, the joint commission?
Pardon?
Is Walpole, what's the, what?
No,
joint-
no.
What's the other half?
Well, I think also it came into being when the Waypoint Center was administered, was put up. So
Well, what's the joint? What is the joint with?
right now it's stagnant, that's too much.
There is no
anything.
joint, and they don't really do it.
It was the second
have-
side.
Yeah, but they have been involved. I know they were involved with some of
Yeah,
the.
they
perks
they had comments on the FERC, I think it was.
Yeah, and they collaborate with the larger Connecticut River
Right.
Commission. Up and down the river.
I'm an environmental buff. If you need another person on it, I'd be glad to volunteer, but maybe Margaret Perry wants to stay on it.
So for
Well,
now,
let's-
we just nominate both of them and see what happens.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's what I would do.
All right, I suppose we nominate Margaret Perry and Tom Hernan for the Connecticut River Joint Commission.
Second that.
Motion made and seconded to appoint Margaret Perry and Tom Hernan to the Connecticut River Joint Commission. All those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. We don't have a constable. So emergency management committee is, we appointed those during the year. Energy chairperson is the next one up. And I believe Peter Bergstrom is still interested.
Yeah, I move that we nominate Peter Bergstrom for the energy chairperson.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to appoint Peter Bergstrom as energy chairperson. All those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Question, Peter.
Yeah.
What, do we need a constable? Apparently not.
Well, we had one at one point, and then we had two actually. One was Ron Lake and the other was Shane Harris. We all know what happened with Ron. He left and Shane passed away. So we constantly don't have one and we haven't been able to get anybody. So it's an open position. It's not a required position by statute. You can, basically their duty was to hand out, basically serves a process. And if they could do policing, if they were so authorized, that's why I think they appointed both Ron and Shane, because they're both the police department, so they're certified police. So if they caught somebody, they could write tickets, et cetera, et cetera. So,
So did anyone on your staff, Scott, that would be able to do that?
Well, the last time we needed the services and we were dealing with that one center and we had to do process service, we ended up, I think, using a sheriff, if I remember correctly, to do the service for that.
Yeah, it's just,
there again, though, the
It's
health
few and
order-
far between.
health order requires, it's a win, it's a sheriff because the
Correct.
service process on health orders, so appointing a constable to do that negated the first attempt at pursuing a health order on that property.
I see that Chuck Wise is now a certified police person, right?
He's gone through 2-week academy, so he's a part-time.
And he's a health officer too, right?
He's a health officer.
So it wouldn't work for him to do that.
Right.
Okay.
He can serve his own. I think the vacancy at this point, we don't use it enough to justify. I think it's okay to keep it vacant.
Okay, let's move along to the Greater Falls Region Chamber of Commerce. Elijah was appointed in 2021. Are you still interested, sir?
Yeah, unless anybody else is really eager to do
Anyone
it,
else?
so they're certainly welcome.
They're in town, so it's kind of hard.
I know, it's good for someone who
It's
lives in
it's good for him to be, yeah, plus he's be on BDCC, so that helps. Hey, make motion to appoint Elijah to the Chamber of Commerce.
I move that we appoint Elijah Zimmer to the Greater Falls Chamber of Commerce.
I second.
Motion made second to appoint Elijah Zimmer to the Bells Falls Chamber of Commerce. All those in favor would say aye.
I
So Susan is no longer doing it?
No.
Okay.
All those opposed will say nay. Motion carries. All right, let's go to the Green Up Chair. You can see Amy Howlett has resigned. She has informed the Conservation Commission, who believe she told me they were gonna pick someone up to replace her, so the only one that's still out there, I still understand, the Guy Payne is still interested.
Shall we just appoint Guy?
That's the way it looks.
All right, I move that we appoint Guy Payne as the Green Up Chair.
Second that.
Motion made and seconded to appoint Guy Payne as the Green Up Chair. All those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Opera House Committee. Currently, it's Rick Collin and Susan Hammond.
We're just a select board ones, there's others
Yeah.
in the public.
We've had some questions, some from the previous members to join that. And
Charlie Hunter, a logical candidate. Given that he's involved with the Opera House.
Probably since we have a contract, it might be a conflict of interest.
yeah,
Even though I think it's probably better. You'll attend, I'm sure,
All right, so
and
he'll be-
participate, but I think it was probably not as an appointed person.
part of the problem is that I don't think any of those meetings have been advertised or posted on the
Oh, yeah.
I've
agenda.
only had the
so,
one that was way back, almost a year ago, right?
More than.
Yeah.
so I know they
Haven't
had
had any
one
other
before. There
meetings?
were
We're gonna have
4 or 5
one
people on that
potentially
committee.
coming up to talk about some of the
Mhm.
lighting.
They started dropping off. Probably ended up.
A lot of people moved out of town who were on the committee. They left the area.
And RED is solving, or doing a lot of the work. It used to be.
Yeah.
Right. But it seems to be working well, as far as I can tell.
Right, we have some capital things that I wanted to talk to at some point in the upper house and then the board about, so. There'll be some
it's
things
more like
coming in
we're
May.
liaison between Red and the select board instead of them coming for everything directly to the
Right.
select.
So you two still interested?
Yeah.
Stay on it?
Sure.
Well, I move then that we appoint Rick Cohen and Susan Hammond to the Opera House Committee.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion made and seconded to appoint Rick Collin and Susan Hammond to the Opera House Committee. Now, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Hey, Personnel Rules Committee, union negotiations. Bonnie ventured into that last year, and of course, they're not due until another couple of years before we.
There is some updates I want to do, the
Union
personnel,
negotiation.
so there'll be some work between now and the end
Personnel
of the
rules, I
summer.
don't know whenever they're gonna be.
Right,
So, take a motion, you still interested in staying on there?
Yeah, you staying too?
Hmm?
You were staying too or not?
No, I was getting off. that's
Oh, you're
why.
getting off, okay.
Yeah.
So it's just me, okay.
No.
Sure, I'll go for it.
Thank you. I move that we, I quickly move.
Before she backs up. Wait a second. Okay, motion made and seconded to appoint Bonnie North to the Personnel Rules Committee and Union Negotiations. All those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Pound keeper, there is a letter in your packet from the end of contract also that's been signed by the manager for the Lynn County Humane Society. They wish to stay on. And there's a contract for $1,514, I guess. They charge by the person if you have over 1,500 people, 25 cents a person. There's a lot of exclusions. I don't know if you looked at that there. They don't take care of a lot of things. It's just basically boarding for animals.
But the weird thing to me is if a dog is picked up for biting someone,
Yeah.
they don't take it, where does it go?
Good question.
We haven't had that for a while with an aggressive animal. I'm not sure. Cass has normally been able to find a spot to take it. So,
This is a historical factor. A biting dog, if it's reported, and there is a hearing before the select board, and the select board then decides what happens to the animal. If it's a vicious, considered a vicious dog, then the dog can be ordered to be put down.
But where does it go while you wait for that hearing?
Pardon? Well, the dog would have to be,
Cass's garage?
either
or
probably
something?
because the first thing you do is you gotta put them up for 10 days, probably at a veterinarian, but.
so
it's
typically what
different
happens is Cass finds a vet to board,
Because,
and they have to isolate the animal and test it for rabies.
So,
It's a whole process.
I know the last one
And then we have to pay for all of this.
that was a Fergus dog out in Pleasant Valley Road. Chased a woman jogger up the road.
Bitter?
Well, yeah, made a number on it, I guess, and some people that heard the woman really screaming and they let her in the house and the man went out the front door, I guess, and got the dog's attention. And when he did, the woman let her in the back door of the house and they called the police and the state actually sheriff, I guess, came down.
What happened to the dog?
That was put down. Actually, the owner wanted to take it, do it himself and eat it, but.
And eat it?
Yes.
He wanted to eat his dog?
Yeah, I'm not going there. I'm just telling you, that's the
Well, no
story.
wonder the dog was a little, unruly.
But that being said, that's what happened.
Let's move on.
You had to know the owner.
What's for dinner?
Oh,
Bad
wow.
dog.
Okay, I'll take a motion to appoint Wyndham County to the health off, to be the pound keeper.
I moved that, Wyndham, what is it here? Wyndham
County.
County.
Humane Society.
Humane Society become our pound keeper.
So here a second.
Second.
All those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried. When the county says Humane Society is appointed. Recreation Committee is the next one, and you can see there's a listing there. Town of Polignano, Heather Hicks, Ben Bashir, Megan Applegate, Bonnie North, and Susan Hammond are on the rec committee. I haven't heard from anybody in the negative to that. I assume the rest of them would desire to stay on it. They're pretty active in those. I don't know about Ben, but the rest of them are.
You know that, but I know.
Are you still?
Yeah, I-
in on it?
I've don't
Okay,
remember
and
having a
Bonnie?
meeting.
No.
Not since I guess, I mean, do we ever do anything?
We haven't.
Sure, do nothing.
Those are kind of good committees to get on. Take a motion to appoint the listing for the recreation committee.
So moved for.
All right. Motion was made and seconded to appoint the list to Town of Polignano, Heather Hicks, Ben Bashir, Megan Applegate, Bonnie North, and Susan Hammond to the rec committee. All those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Revolving Loan Fund Committee. There's a listing there, Katie Dearborn, Sanford Martin, Hugh Haggerty, I think he's resigned from that. Sue Hammond and Rick Cowan. Rick, has he been coming to those? You?
I don't even have one.
We haven't had them for a while, but Gary had a few a while back.
Well, so when Hugh Haggerty resigned, you folks appointed Rebecca Jagnan.
That's what I was gonna say. I thought we were appointing Rebecca today, so I'll have to change that listing.
We will be having a meeting in the first or second week of May.
Okay, we need a motion to appoint Katie Dearborn, Sanford Martin, Susan Hammond, Rick Collins, and Gary Fox as non-voting member, and Rebecca Gagnon.
A second.
The main secretary to appoint that list I just read to the revolving loan committee. All those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Historic Preservation Committee. There is a listing in your packet stating John Putnam, Diana Jones, Annette Spalding, Miles Mickle, Elijah Zimmer on there. Some of those are listed here, and I will change the listing to add, I think it is Diana Jones to it. The rest of them are okay. So,
Yeah, well, Fred Tipton is deceased.
yeah, Marguerite Jansen is off. Yeah, we can put her on. She hasn't said she doesn't want to stay on there. I know she's involved with the Historic Commission.
So she comes off or not?
Up the board, they want, I haven't heard she doesn't, not interested. I know she's still active.
She had decided to resign from it, so.
Oh, she has?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right, so that makes it easier. So if someone wants to read the packet.
So this is who it is then. that's-
Or you can just say the listing and remove Anderson.
I move that we appoint John Whitman, Janet Jones, Annette Spalding, Miles Bickle, Elijah Zimmer, and then Walter, right?
Yeah, I think Walter wants to be on there.
Walter Wallace to the Historic Preservation Review Committee.
I second that motion.
Okay, motion made and seconded to appoint John Butler, Diana Jones, Annette Spalding, Miles Mickle, Elijah Zimmer, and Walter Wallace to the Historic Preservation Committee. All those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. So carries. Hey, Senior Center, that is Hugh Haggerty. I have not heard from him. We appointed him last time and never got a response back that he didn't want to be the rep, so. Take a motion to appoint you again.
Move to appoint you Haggerty to the senior center.
Second,
I'll second.
motion is made and seconded to appoint you Haggerty to the Senior Center. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next one is the Town Service Officer, has been Christine Bullock for several years. And there's a letter in packet requesting her resignation.
What does the town service officer do?
Takes care of any indigent requests, puts up temporary housing for homeless, et cetera, et
Oh,
cetera.
right, okay.
We haven't had too much. Andy Bernardo did for years,
Right.
and when she retired, Christine took over. And now Christine, of course, she was living with Shane, and when Shane passed, I think she sold the house shortly thereafter, and I don't even know if she's around anymore.
Yeah.
So we will be looking for another one, probably have to advertise.
So where do we put people now? They used to put them.
They usually send them up to the old lodge motel if they ever day in.
But under COVID, there were so many other alternatives, and you know, that we didn't really have to rely on service officer, right?
The state did a lot of
State did a lot.
placements,
Yeah,
and I think they extended that again. So,
so,
but at some point, I'm assuming that'll go back to local.
okay. Now we get to the end, folks. Town Tax Stabilization Committee. There are 5 on this, but this was established back in the 60s and 70s when revenue sharing was flush with funds and people were looking to get businesses in here. And that's when I think they started establishing the park up north here, where Whitney Blake, et cetera, is. And to get people into there, they has tax stabilization, which is usually a 5-year program. Starts at 50% the first year and reduces down to 10%, then at the 6th year, starting the 6th year, back to full tax.
Does the state pick up the tab or do we?
No, you just, that's why you have that extra thing on your tax bill, that 1.2% or whatever that happens to be for anybody you abate taxes, or whatever, that's where it's a catch-all plus education tax goes in there.
Oh.
So, I did a little research on that, like, Scott asked me, what is it? And I don't think anything's been done. I think the last time we did something with Chroma, but I don't think it was tax stabilization. They asked for like a couple of year something, or I can't remember. That was, Gary, you remember what Chroma asked for?
Yes, they did have a tax stabilization agreement.
That wasn't 5 years old, was it?
No, so,
Something they offered, I think they proposed and we accepted.
yeah, so the town meeting, 2 different years, it was decades ago, passed a formula and state law, if town meeting says to implement a tax stabilization, they have rules around it. And there were the motions, I'm sorry, you're allowed to do different stabilization things, whatever the committee decides and recommends to the select board. And the formula that you described, they did for a lot of small businesses, the larger businesses like Vermed and Chroma, they customized them to meet, like a lot of the small businesses will be renovating a storefront in the square, for instance. And for Chroma and Vermed, they were doubling the size of the facilities. They were multi-million-dollar projects, and they customized stabilization programs for them. And there are small businesses that have, it's one of our selling points, along with the revolving loan fund, that we tell small businesses if they relocate here, this is a way that we understand you're going to invest, $60,000, $70,000 to improving your storefront, setting up a business here, and we help you recoup that in the early years of operating by offering this discount on your taxes. And it's only on the municipal portion. The education tax does not get impacted at all, because that would affect all of us. We still have to pay the same amount of education tax. So if we stabilize that, then the rest of us pick that up. So at any rate, it hasn't been used much in a few years, but with people starting to, we do have 2 revolving loan fund applications that have just recently come in last week. That's why I say we'll have a meeting beginning of May. And they are the type of small businesses that have traditionally done the formula that you described with the 50% of the municipal portion of the tax in year 1, 40% discount in year 2, 30%, 10% year 5, and then full tax bill going in the 6th year.
Did Rockingham Roasters do a tax stabilization?
They did not.
Seems like they would have been perfect.
It would have been a good one, and we wrote to them offering that piece, and they were not interested.
Gary is correct in the fact that you do have, the state says that it has to be voted at a town meeting to do a tax stabilization program.
So it has to be an actual item on the warrant then?
Yeah, and that can be voted on if the voters decide not to do it, then that's discontinued. And then the board could do it. I know I looked at Brattleboro's, theirs is quite extensive. I mean, they pretty much allow, they tell you what you can do and what you can't do, and how much, what businesses qualify for what percentage of thing. It's interesting reading it down through, so. I don't know whether you want to appoint somebody or this group that's here.
Are they all still interested in doing it?
Well, we always appoint them, but they, as they say, they haven't done anything for several years, so I assume
They might have
unless
forgotten about
something
the whole thing.
major comes up. The only one I wondered about is Richard Stickney because of age, but the rest of them are all down, fairly able to get around and whatever. Dick's a good one because he's pretty knowledgeable about the area and things. So if we want to appoint, then someone can make a motion.
All right, I move that we appoint them. To Tim Powers, Richard Sickling, Tom Vernon, Dennis Hardy, and Pat Fowler, the tax stabilization committee.
Second that.
Okay, motion made and seconded to appoint Tim Powers, Richard Stickney, Tom Vernon, Dennis Hardy, and Pat Fowler as the tax stabilization committee. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. That pretty much finishes up except for the fire committee. Scott has handed me an old 1994 policy here, which states there's supposed to be 7 members on that, 3 board members, 3 members from one equal member from each board. That's the village, Bells Falls, Sac River, and the select board. 3 chiefs and the manager, which makes 7. When we met at the joint board session last, let's say either last year, tail end of last year, or the first part of this year, Wade Mashore voted or requested that just the fire department and the fire chiefs and the manager be appointed to the fire committee. But if that's the case, then this policy has to be changed, has to be rewritten. Or we need to go back to the old, adding the 1 member from each board as representative. I suggested that at the meeting, but they didn't seem to think they didn't want any board members on there.
Given their inability to get along in some cases, it would be good to have an umpire in there somehow.
That was why it was set up to begin with, but going along with that, there's supposed to be a study going on about the thing, and last time I knew, they're having troubles finding someone to do the actual study. Last one was done about, 2004, something like that?
Well, there's 2 studies from the earlier 2000s, but they were mostly Bellas Falls, and they really weren't the kind of study that they're proposing now to look at run data and response time data, and also then where they potentially think they should be putting equipment or what our equipment mix should be. So just my opinion, for what it's worth to the board, is some of the decisions that have been coming through this committee are fairly large dollar obligations, and I think it always is helpful to have folks who are elected in that conversation. Especially when you start getting recommendations for $500,000 pieces of equipment or $1 million+ facilities improvements. I think it's nice to have folks on the ground level working through the discussion up and until it appears in front of the select board for a decision. So my preference, and again, it's just me, is to have, folks on the larger 7-person working committee.
Did they give any reason for that, Peter?
No, they didn't want anybody, I guess, maybe, I hate to use the word, but say snooping or what they were doing, because they, as Rick said, there is a friction there between the departments. And Amy, I know at one point had talked to me and that she looked at one of them, and I think it was the earlier one that she had a copy of. And it was discovered from that study that there's no way that anyone who wants to, they didn't want to do it. They didn't want to, follow the recommendations of the committee. So sometimes it gets to the point that Rich said, you make an umpire and somebody's got to pull up their boots and say, no, this is how it's got to work. And we're spending that money to do this study. What's the sense of just spending money just to hear somebody say, we're not doing that? So,
Peter, you know a lot of the players, and you've got a lot of history. I hate to, but would you ever be interested?
well, I don't mind being on it. I mean, that's why one of the reasons I spoke up when it was brought up about not having the principals on it. But didn't get anywhere, so.
If we honor Scott's recommendation, we should have somebody from the board.
That's not just Scott's, it's the policy. The current policy that is at the council.
Yeah.
Right, I mean,
Board plus
And your
man-
recommendation is to leave it that way.
and the
I
two
think
chiefs.
it makes a lot of sense, but again, it's obviously the board decision.
So.
My input would be-
Yeah, I don't have a problem being on it. I don't think Amy has a problem being on it. So that just leaves the village. I don't know if anybody wants to get on from that.
So this came up because because,
Well, the study was first initiated
Yeah.
about studying all,
Right.
all of the fire departments, whether they want to join or whether
yeah,
they're gonna be, one station that involves Rockingham, Saxon River, and then the Bells Falls station, then, and, it got into arguments of where they're gonna put the station and
right, I
this stuff,
understand
and now, of
that.
course, Saxon River wants
but I
to
mean,
build their
this-
own station.
This idea of not having any elected people on that committee, that came from the committee?
No, that came from Wade Bashir at the joint board meeting,
Oh, that came from a trustee,
right?
okay. So we would have to vote to agree to that.
You'd have to change the policy.
We have to vote to change the policy.
Right.
Yeah.
And if we don't vote to change the policy,
That's the
Then
fire
we
committee.
just appoint,
You just have to make
we
appointments.
can appoint the board members, and the chairs, and,
Right.
I mean, it's not like it's a meeting that's done every month.
yeah, I know.
They probably meet every quarter, but
We're trying to meet
as
quarterly.
Scott says, when you start talking
Right.
about spending buku
Oh,
bucks,
yeah. No,
somebody
I
ought to
totally
be there
agree.
in
I'm
on
just
it,
trying to
because,
figure out where this whole notion that there
common
shouldn't,
sense has to,
where
like,
it
us
came
to shut
from.
on board common
did the,
sense.
did the trustees have an opinion on this matter? Because they're supposed to be a trustee.
I think, I'm just reading from what I heard, and I just think it was Wade's comment that went that way. Because I think Wade's on Rockingham, if I'm not mistaken.
He's in the department, on that
So,
department. Yeah.
So,
All right, well, I move that we keep the policy on it.
Second,
there's a motion made seconded to retain the current policy and have some members on the fire committee.
and we make another motion to appoint you as our representative.
Yes.
Do that.
Okay, and so we'll.
Second.
Motion made seconded.
We don't appoint the other members, we just appoint the select board members, correct?
Yeah, we'd have to get Scott or I can email Amy and see if she wants to. I mean, the town village meeting next week, 25th, so.
Yeah.
I thought they're supposed to do one from each board,
Pardon?
one person. from each
Yeah, but we
board.
don't nominate the other board members.
Yeah.
We only
Yeah,
nominate
nominate
our board.
themselves.
Right.
I'll bring it to the village and let them,
Okay, and I can get
I'll
all
bring a copy of the policy.
Bring
Okay.
it up
See
on
where
the
it goes.
business up there, see what kind of reaction we get from that group.
And is the other, I haven't seen this policy, I haven't looked at it in a long time, so is the other three, the three chiefs, and
Yeah.
then a member at large, a community member at large, is that the seven?
No, there's three
Chiefs,
and
three,
three chiefs, three board members,
who's
and
the seventh, oh, the manager,
so.
all right.
So we need to vote on it.
So I made a motion that Peter be our representative. And that's-
Elijah second.
Elijah second, so
Okay, motion's been made to appoint myself as the representative from the Saxon, from the Rockingham Selectboard to the fire committee, per the policy and enforce. All those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carried.
thank you for doing that.
I will, I updated this one a bit, so trying to get back and find out if all these appointments are when they are on the far right corner, the terms.
Yep.
And then what I'll do is, where it says appointed 2022, I'll move that for portion over to 21. And then we'll have it over for 23, so when we come next year, and then I'll see if we can get this posted on the website so people can see who's on these committees. And then we can get it out to the board members so they, for their files. I know you guys don't have the Bible I have, but it's got all the policies and everything. You did find the original policy upstairs. Surprisingly, that didn't get dumped somewhere, but we did find it. Find the appointments book, there's a book up there, you can carry, you come in, she couldn't find it, so I don't know. All right, let's move on to page 2 of the agenda, and the next item is the ARPA resolution for standard allowance. There is a note in your packet, and recommended motion.
So basically, this came through VLCT, and really what it does is it helps us with our compliance and reporting. We're still going through our process. It doesn't change anything in terms of, how the board will ultimately decide to go forward with specific projects. But what it does do, it allows us to streamline some of the reporting requirements. So it made sense that it's bringing this to the board's attention, and if you agree, it will certainly help us as we go forward. I think that like most of these federal programs, some of the compliance paperwork can be more overwhelming than the programs they support. So this would be a great benefit.
And this is the one time we get to do it because it has to be made by 4:30.
Right, because I have to
So-
go in by April 30th and submit what have we
Right.
done to date, and that's it. So we have the one shot.
Gary,
there.
did you get that form from Wyndham Regional, about all that malarkey and the form you have to submit?
I have that,
If he's got it.
right.
Amy, you know, it's funny, Debbie never got one, but Amy got one.
I'm not sure why, yeah.
I don't know, that's why I sent you and
Yeah.
Deb with
I
coffee.
registered for
You
the
got
town
it.
and the village, so,
So,
It's actually voted affirmatively on at their meeting 3 days ago. 2
Yeah.
days ago.
Okay, well, I move that the town of Rockingham make the one-time irrevocable decision to elect the standard allowance approach for our ARPA award in the amount of $441,534 to spend on the provision of government services throughout the period of performance of the grant.
here's a second. Motion was made and seconded to take the one-time irrevocable decision to go the minimum allowance, standard allowance. All those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Rick was at the ARPA meeting that we had with the open, I don't know if anybody else is.
Yeah.
It was interesting seeing how the projects changed from the first meeting to the second one.
Yeah.
I know in town Rockingham, they didn't say much about the senior center combination youth, et cetera, et cetera. It was all different like infrastructure projects where they all started leaning. It was interesting change of pace, I thought. That was from what was started out. I think maybe they finally realized that the money isn't gonna go very far.
Well, it's not that much money.
You look at a $5 million project and you only got $400,000 applied to about 20 other ones.
So
It's,
the whole,
I think the like,
so the whole pie at the highway department,
Yeah.
and then it'd be
Yeah,
gone
so-
flash.
it was interesting.
Or the boiler at the health center.
Yeah, so. Okay, let's go to the financial budget status report that's in your packet. Got a few notes. I don't know if anybody else did.
I've got some questions.
Why don't you start, Rick, while I'm flipping my pages, unless you guys do already.
Okay, so is the deferred tax liability, is that up to $454,000? I see that as our total liability fund balance. Is there a item that I missed about how that's changed?
well, there's always penalties and interest applied, so that'll grow until we do a tax sale. And there are periodic adjustments to that as people are on either payment plans or other people, fall into delinquency. So it does change over time.
Okay, I'm hoping that a press release can be put out about this HAP, the homeowners assistance program. The state got $50 million, as you know. And I don't think we publicized it, but a lot of people, when I talk to people, they have no idea if they can get this help.
Well, it's surprising because we get a lot of calls because there have been people that have already applied for money.
Oh, good.
And Pam is very aware of it, so she talks to them. We're also going to put it on our first round of notices to the current list of people that are on the current tax sale process.
Oh, good. So when they
So I
get the
spoke to the
letter,
attorney, so they'll have the letter. But again, that is a 100% their responsibility to do that and apply and see if they qualify. So
right, so it's just getting them to do it.
it's a self-help program. And if you don't self-help, the train keeps moving. So
What is their deadline to do that?
they could have been doing it as early as, I think it started in January of this year. We put it on our website, we put information out on the table out in the area. And again, a lot of people that have been delinquent on utility accounts also tend to be delinquent on their taxes. And we have been pointing them into the same direction for that as well. So, and so far I'm aware we've received 4 payments through this so far.
Okay,
So,
that's good.
yeah. And maybe we'll see more. Again, people have
Is there a cutoff date on that program? I mean, obviously we have tax sales coming up, and that's kind of.
There isn't
cut
At
off
this point, there has
point.
been no date where they're going to stop accepting applicants, so. it's an open
When
ended.
the money runs out, it's when they stop.
My guess is, unless they appropriate more money in the budget, I think at some point Susan Dryden will just hit a natural ending point.
It's a win-win. I mean, we don't have to go to the effort of doing a tax sale. They keep their house. It's just, it's a great outcome.
I would agree. So we have been, like I said, we've had 4 so far, which is, 4 fewer that we would have on our list, so
And those are 4 who were honored like the tax.
it's 4 who would have been eligible.
Okay.
Except now that we received the payment, obviously they're up to date, so.
Okay, one other question, Scott. I think Saks River decided not to do fireworks this year because the cost doubled. Is that, I see that Old Home Day fireworks are under $4,500. Is that still? correct?
That's all for Rockingham, though, when they go in town.
Oh, that's.
Yeah, Saxon River raises their own money for their,
Oh, okay.
I haven't heard that they are, I know I did hear they're not doing them this year, I guess, there's something with the rec out there, something like that.
Yeah, that's it.
And
I think the price doubled.
Yeah.
$1,000 up to $10,000. And it looks like you come in black with the solid waste recycling. center.
Oh, yeah, it's,
Larry said he wants a commission.
Well, Peter's been my recycling enforcement police, so really, I think if anybody gets the
yeah,
kickback.
they're
it's
doing
Peter.
well down there, and like I say, I think we're gonna break even this year, come damn close to it. We're working on 3 months left, and right now, our revenue is where we projected just about, within $300, I think.
Yeah, that's impressive.
So it's the change that we made and everybody thought was gonna be the end all. The other story I heard is that Westminster, their contract with their hauler is up next year.
Mhm.
And from what Larry's hearing from people, they're not gonna renew their contract down there, so God help us, we may end up with an overflow from Westminster. But the offset to that is that we may be able to negotiate something so they can pay a portion of, their costs.
Yeah.
And we can eliminate them paying the $35 fee for the sticker. That still would leave all the other area towns, Athens, Grafton, we could still get quite a few of those. And
Yeah.
we're still getting from Chester and Springfield yet, believe it or not. And even some from Walpole, we're still getting from those area towns. They would still have to pay the $35 fee. So,
Yeah, I think Westminster started as a state grant 30-some years ago, and then people would let go of it, and then the taxpayers had to pick it up.
I don't think they're gonna like their renewal. I think whatever their number is on renewal is gonna be
Yeah. Well, they
expensive.
don't have a town manager anymore, right?
Not at the moment, it's not I'm aware of.
oh, speaking of the recycling, I did bump into Ally down there at the recycling, yeah, they were harassing her. Because she started harassing us about the blockage down there and people chatting and not moving their vehicles. But the zoning permit, we do not need to the shed, if we go that. I asked her who the zoning person was. She announced that she's probably the.
She is?
Yeah, she is
At the
temporary
moment?
interim zoning, and I says, good, then let me ask you.
I had spoken to the previous manager, so I thought we were in the clear, but
Yeah,
that
yeah, so
changed.
she said, no, we don't need one, so we're
Okay.
good to go when we get going with that, so.
One last question, sorry.
Yep.
Before everyone, but the VLCT Consulting is gonna help you analyze this IT, this big number we have here for IT consulting, right?
Well, I don't know exactly what they're gonna do. We have a call with them tomorrow to find out what's going on with that, so I don't know yet. How much of that they'll actually do for us. I think they're doing more as a cybersecurity
Okay.
kind of audit because VLCT offers insurance coverage for cyber. And if you don't meet certain benchmarks, you're not eligible for the coverage. And so it's really important that we meet their benchmarks, but I don't know what other types of things they're gonna look at. We're still, like I said, I'm still working. I got 3 different providers that we're working with. We're still working with the folks over in New Hampshire. So,
And when will you get a final bid from those people?
well, we just had another email exchange this week. He wants some more information. So we've had a site visit. I've had a couple of sort of, back and forth with data and additional data. So I'm hoping that we wrap it up sometime this month so that he can give me a quote. And we'll have the 3 to talk about. So,
That's great. That'd be a real step forward.
yeah. Yeah, we need to transition. There's lots of things that we should or could do. So,
Right, that's my list.
Now, on page one, if you look at that, it's interesting, look at the interest on delinquent taxes and interest on current taxes, that's quite a chunk of money, $80,000. But I noticed that the penalty is lagging, but that doesn't take effect until May, the last payment.
Okay, I was gonna
We'll
I don't think
see
she applies until like.
what
the 10th
happens
of
with
May.
that, if anybody's still delinquent, because it's all delinquents and we're going to tax sale, so. All right, on page 13, under theater expense, events and expense. There's no total there, it just goes right into the total expenses, we didn't insert a total line. It's not very difficult, there's only 2 items there. But 13 of 18,
Okay,
if we just insert that in there. I think we talked about the expense of the phone expense down here at town hall. On page 15 of 18. Excavation permit expense, we've estimated $10,000 in our budget for that. We don't, what is that for? We haven't spent anything.
I'll show, which one again, Peter? I was just,
Down the bottom of about bottom of the page, last one under highway administration, there's excavation permit expense for $10,000 we got in there. We haven't spent anything. I'm just curious what that's for.
I believe part of that was for the pit.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So, and we are gonna start talking about the pit, because there's a few things that are happening around our Act 250 permit, what's going on at Savages, and some other opportunities for us for gravel, so we're working on a few items, and it'll probably be coming to you guys in May to have a conversation about a couple of things that will be impacting the pit.
So we might need new permits for that then, you say?
Was that for renewal, or is it been renewed?
It's been renewed, we did do that, but the third site, Site 3, can be active up and through October of 26. So there's an opportunity and we just got an estimate on how much material might be in there. And so I think it's like 32,000 cubic yards of gravel. And it abuts the work that's being done at Savage's place, so it might make some sense for us to look at some sort of joint operation. We can stockpile the material. And just to give you some idea, if you pay an operator to stockpile it $4 or $5 or $6 a yard, it's selling right now, well, we have to go and pick it up at 15 to 16 a yard. So you have a substantial amount of savings in that, you claim that area.
Yeah, no, I know Rockingham, or parts of residents would be happy to have it done at the same time, so we don't have to deal with noise for years on end.
It also, right, doing it contiguous would help, because that Savage site is going to be multiple years for that to get resolved.
Is he mining gravel?
Yes, eventually those buildings will disappear, and that will be, once it's mined, it'll be just a flat piece of property.
How's the solar project coming along? We heard anything?
Well, some of the site work on the Area 3 would impact his access point for his utilities. So we've asked if we could delay some of that so that we can get these decisions made. And then if there is some work to do, we could try to mine the area that they want to put the access in, and then they could move his access along. He can keep moving on his array. So it all the pieces sort of fit. That's why we have to sit and talk in May. So we'll have some updates for you guys then.
Have we gotten any money from them yet?
You won't get it until the 50,000 will come when he has his final authorization.
Okay.
And he won't get that until he's got everything approved. I think there was one item that was still going through environmental review. He still had one piece. But I don't think there's any holdup. It's just final.
Mhm.
Okay, let's go to 16 of 18. I know it's a street light district is pretty close, and we got 3 months left to go. And in conjunction with that, when I came through town last week, there must have been at least 10 bulbs out.
I think 21. So you missed a few.
I didn't comment individually, but I went down, I said, well, there's another one over there.
I'm sorry, that sounded sarcastic, but the reason I said that is we were talking the other day with Andy in the office and Elijah had come in for another issue, so we ended up talking about, we're replacing the two that are missing down now. And while we're doing that, we're also going to be, I think we ended up getting 10 additional of the LEDs, so we'll replace half in this year and try to do half in the next budget year. But they're at about 1,500 a fixture roughly.
Yeah,
Can't
I
remember
think
the real number, you might have.
I actually have it right here, it is $1,785.
All right, so with that being said, we just couldn't get them all in this one purchase, so we're gonna do half. Hopefully get in our FEMA reimbursement money, see how we look at year end, and maybe if we're, looking financially solvent and in a good place with our paving and all our other major expenses, maybe the board could decide later in the summer, we might want to buy a second round. And we could certainly do replacements before winter and it gets dark again, so. But we went a little
They
conservative.
They're failing quite quickly. It's like every month I see at least one or two more out, so.
Well, they start to
feel
blink
like
first, right, just to give
they
you a
start to
warning, and then all of a
blink.
sudden they're gone.
How long does a light last?
They should have lasted a lot longer than they did. They actually they were like 6 months past their warranty period. They should have lasted like, 10 years and then lasted.
I think
for
the
like-
initial idea was that these were 10 years, but I think they were in warranty for 5 roughly. And a lot of them barely made it to that warranty. And
Wow.
they've been failing in pretty large numbers.
So these are incandescent old ones?
These are LEDs, but they're first generation LEDs and they're not real. I think the new ones that we have are a little bit better engineering wise and hopefully better in terms of their longevity. I just think these were poorly designed and sort of a first generation and they just didn't last.
Aren't there some special kind of warm LED?
Well, there's different lighting, foot candles and lumens based on what you had ordered. In fact, that's funny you should say that because we also had a conversation about, because some of these LEDs, the light can be, people get annoyed by it. The color is almost like a bluish, whitish. sort
Right,
of-
it hurts my eyes.
Right. So we went with something a little less intense and a little more muted. So it's not that real harsh
Mhm.
light. So. But yes, Peter's right. There's quite a few that are missing.
So that would be 10 this current fiscal year, and
10
then,
that we've just ordered,
then 10 potentially
right?
the next. fiscal
Plus the
year.
2 that are missing on Canal Street, which have been missing since they got knocked down.
So this figure here of whatever, that includes what you just ordered?
No, that's just, I believe that's just what we're paying for the cost of the current installed streetlights.
Yeah, you got Saxon River and
Right.
it's some made for those lights out there, not true that they got. But
So what were you remarking on, Peter, that we already?
well, I just thought, we switched over to LED and everything and save money, and now it's getting caught up again. I just wondered why we're.
I think these newer LEDs are more efficient, so I think you'll see a better return on your electrical investment. So we'll have to keep an eye on that though. But Peter's right, we're getting close on that line.
Okay, on 17 of 18 and the equipment stuff. Got quite a few bucks spent on a couple of vehicles here, 3 or 4 of them. 27,000 on 28,000 on one truck. 29,000 on 2 other ones. Almost 30. That's a 4x6. I think that one's being replaced, isn't it?
Right.
That's the old.
We've had a couple of significant, mostly, especially with these trucks, the biggest issue is the transmissions. We've had a couple of hydraulic issues with a couple of these trucks as well.
Because the other thing that isn't separate is the tires. I know those tires are about $1,000 a piece.
Yeah,
It doesn't take long to get sorry, 10-wheeler, it's got 10 tires on it, there's 10 grand right there. That's to replace all of them, but if you're replacing one, you're usually replacing maybe 4. So, down a little further under equipment operations, miscellaneous equipment purchases, it's up 10 grand. What's going on there? What the hell are we buying?
One of those, I believe, was our rock. Remember, we had received a grant for our rock
Oh,
screener,
Okay, so we might have.
and
some
so
money
that
coming
is
out
an
now.
offset for that in revenue, so.
Yeah.
That's why it looks a little, that's why it looks a little out of whack. So,
Scott, that's a 2017 truck that had a $27,000 repair. Isn't that 5 years? Isn't that within warranty?
I think that's a 2006, right? 2000, 4x6 truck.
Yeah, it says
it
2007.
says 2017, but I thought
Yeah, it's one of the older ones.
it's one of the older ones, yeah.
Yeah, 217, so it's- doesn't seem right to have it, the warranty, but
It's 5
usually
years.
it's a 5-year.
Right.
Some of them have 7, but I don't know.
And so this is, we have our own diesel mechanic, right?
We do.
But these are other, we take this somewhere else to have that stuff.
For heavy duty work like that, you have to take it to and you end up taking it to one of the dealers. So we don't have the heavy duty lifts that you really have to do, to work on some of these things. And then he's great. He does a lot of our, keeping things rolling during the winter time. If you bang a plow or you have an issue, he can repair on the go. But in terms of the heavy stuff, we just don't have the capacity.
Okay, anybody else have anything on?
Yeah, I just had a question again on, at one point, we were talking about changing the way credit cards are processed. Is there anything happening to update that?
We have ordered a new system and we're waiting for an implementation date. And I think it's going to be probably end of May or early June. So once they've committed to the date, I'll walk through with you guys what it is. It's not a percentage fee, it's just a transaction fee. So there's still some advantage for people that are using it, but it will save us. Right now, we're subsidizing that 3.whatever%. So that should transition sometime in late May or early June.
In terms of staffing, looks like you found a personnel person, Heather Hitchcock.
Yeah, she's doing a little bit of human resources for me. She's gonna do some training for us. She's gotta do workers' comp for us. We've got a huge area of safety issues that we have to address.
She's a
So,
great person.
yeah, she's been great. She's working on a couple of initiatives, and at some point I'll,
Her daughter on the school bus for several years.
Yeah.
And I was shocked when she came in. I saw her going on the corner. Yeah, what are you doing in here?
That's right. Amazing. And then it looks like there's a new assistant in the town clerk's office.
Mary's been here since February.
Yeah, I'm gonna say at least 4 or 5 months, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
I'm slowly getting back to stabilize at the moment, which is good, so.
Okay, anything else on finance? Anybody got any other questions? Insufficient.
Very great.
I've just been, keeping an eye on the cinema. Looks like we are running about 30-some thousand.
That's the real schedule for what we were running before.
But it's, it'd be interesting just to see, the next year, now that, COVID is coming down, how much we're able to get our numbers.
It'd be interesting after these next couple of shows that are going on at the end of the week, to see where the theater comes in and see if that comes, but if you take off that $140,000 that we got for the grant, with the Children's Venues grant, that really puts a big hole in that thing. So we're gonna have to discuss that. Scott's talking about.
Yeah, there's
discussing
quite a few things that are sort of impacting the cinema, right? I think we talked about the issues of trying to do this grant for the lighting. And, I was concerned when we talked about it, and I know that, some pressure was applied to the board to hurry up and do some things, and I'm glad that you didn't. Because as it turns out, there is some structural issues in the roof. So we've hired a structural engineer to give us some estimates on what bracing is going to be required, because there's too much load up there as it is to put anything more to hang from the ceiling.
Something like 2,000 pounds.
Well, it depends on the proposed new lighting would be, they look like kind of phone booths, but they're a little under 2,000 pounds a piece, but there's a couple of them and they have to hang. And so when you add that to the existing load, which is already close to max, that's, the structural engineer did not recommend it without some structural improvements to our load there. And then we have, as we talked about, we have problems with our current regular house lighting system. And then the other cinema lighting system is also somewhat obsolete. So in order to really do this right, we have to do some major electrical upgrades. So this $22,000 lighting grant, which we also would match with $22,000, we're going to probably have to spend $100,000 worth of improvements to make all of this work. So that's why the board has to sit down. We have to have a conversation. We can make it work, as Peter had intimated. The shuttered venue grant gives us an opportunity. We have that second $70,000 tranche. We can apply that money towards theater expenses in the current year, and then take all the current theater revenue and offset it so that we could apply it towards these projects. And that would basically bring
ARPA money on it too, couldn't you?
I'm sorry?
You could put ARPA money on it too.
Ultimately, you could if it comes in higher than that. The point of it is you don't have to dip into that. I think you can do it with existing funds and supplementing it through the shuttered venue grant. So you would have had the $144,000 plus then the second $70,000. So it's sort of given us a $200,000 head start. And it gives us an opportunity to reinvest in some of the infrastructure that's critical if we're going to support these types of shows and live events and things going forward. And then you still have 3 years worth of payments on the 2006 improvements that were done. So that's something that the board just needs to be aware of.
This sounds like it could become a money pit.
It's always tough, right? Because the theater operations are part of the ambiance of the community. They're part of the downtown. It's part of what makes Bellows Falls and sort of the place, the sense of place. But to maintain a 100-year-old building and a theater operation in today's environment, it's not easy.
And I think maybe the Wild Goose has a super high standard here for the professional, that they want. East Yards, we did a lot simpler stuff. I was wondering where the line is, but because the revenue from the live theater is going to be $12,000 a year, maybe. I think that's how many years to recoup the additional money we're going to have to spend. So I'm just wondering who else other than Wild Goose needs that super fancy stuff out there.
All of these touring people that come in, like the Sedaris event, any of these musical groups all want that type of digital lighting. So
If you don't have it, they're not gonna come here.
correct.
But we had Sedaris last, did he come before?
He was here in the fall.
Yeah, and he was okay with that, whether how it was in the fall?
It was limited, but it worked.
Yeah.
But
And
other
attract
types of,
others, I think, if we had the infrastructure.
correct. You could
Yeah,
build out a more robust calendar, and if we're not going to be able to support true cinema, like it doesn't look like the numbers are rebounding to a great extent, we're still way off. And that's not just Bellows Falls, that's nationally.
And then live events are going to be our primary income.
I would think that's going to be the way that the theater is going to survive.
Okay.
So it's like a balance, you know, you have to try to beef up, you know, that's why you need something like Red to get, you know.
Red's been great, they've been helpful,
Yeah.
they've helped us with, you know, some of the things that we wouldn't have been able to accomplish, you know, putting together Spectrix and some of the other things. And Charlie's really very helpful in that respect. He's gonna try to get, his next goal is to try to get subscriptions and people to help support, you know.
Yeah, and it could be that, you know, first run movies is over and done with. But the
Maybe.
movie theater experience isn't. And so
Right.
you might have more of the classics.
Right.
Or you could show the big blockbusters in this theater that you don't want to see on your screen at home.
Right.
I think it's just gonna be a different matter. You're not gonna show every movie
Yeah.
here.
Right.
There's gonna be certain movies you show.
And we have done really well on the the classic films, with sponsorships and attendance, and have also done really well on, compared with 30 years, on-screen advertising. So I think that definitely shows a commitment from the community and trying to invest in it, to the extent they can. So, that may be, it's small money, compared with the overall cost of it, but it just shows that people are definitely interested and they want to try to keep it going.
And it's also another outlet of something to do. I mean, we don't sit here and say, well, our rec department isn't balancing out. They're always waiting
Yeah.
to hold.
Correct.
And we don't expect them to be. We provide that as a public service, and we really, in a lot of ways, provide the theater
Right.
as a public service.
Yeah, it really makes this village unique.
And the Shutter Venue Grant does give you some options to be able to do some of these upgrades without having to hit major tax increase or to do a long-term bond. So there is light at the end of the tunnel, but it's it's a commitment.
I mean, I was actually pleased to see how well they were doing in this, and, with their theater
Yeah.
sales. And
Yeah.
considering, I was expecting much worse numbers.
Yeah, the attendance thing on movies is the biggest challenge by far.
Okay, let's go down to the last item, and that's local cannabis control board discussion. Minute packet, there's select board minutes from Town of Chester. Interesting.
Just more for your reading pleasure, I just thought you would want to see what some of our neighbors were talking about. And
Well, Chester's gonna be our conversation, really, because if you set up, I mean, there'll be local purchase, but out-of-state people who are coming to
Yeah,
stop
get off
here,
the interstate.
get off the
Correct.
interstate.
If they don't.
If there's a
stop,
good
they'll
retailer in Chester, that's where they're gonna do their shopping. They're not gonna stop in Rockingham.
So is there any truth to the rumor I heard that if Springfield and Chester gets one, then some other town may not get one? Is that how that, I don't know how that works.
I thought they
I
said there
can't
was
find anything anywhere.
at least one per town.
That's what I thought was happening.
one
Someone
board,
told
you
me
mean
that
local board, or what are we talking about?
One retailer.
Retail,
Oh,
I
I don't
So
think
one
there's any
town, like,
limit to it. I
somebody
think
mentioned that
it's,
Springfield got one in Rockingham, wouldn't get one.
no, I don't think that's true.
Not according to what it
Right.
says in this thing, no.
Right.
Not
Seems
at
like
all.
there's very little restriction.
The thing that I really wanted to point out to the board is just there is some discussion about the local cannabis control commission
Right.
in here. And then since this came out, they did put in on the state website another updated local cannabis control commission packet guidance that was done after I printed this out and put your packages together. So and I think the state's trying to give some guidance to communities. It's just so early. I just don't think they have a real idea yet. They just haven't standardized it. They barely standardized their own processing of
Yeah,
applications, how they're gonna accept.
I read all through this, all of it, the Chester minutes and this whole little booklet. What we're discussing here is whether or not we want the select board to be the local control board, right? That's the only issue left to discuss, right?
That's what the discussion on the table, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or what structure that,
Right.
whether it's pre-select board or two select board and three members of the public or whatever, what the structure is.
So I guess what I'd like to say is, why shouldn't the select board be it? What's the opposing viewpoint on that? Because we are the liquor control board, why shouldn't we be the cannabis control board?
Makes sense.
It can be, I mean,
Yeah.
but it's reading the Chester minutes, they're discussing some of the public and hopefully one of the persons that wants to be on the committee is the person that's attempting to do the retail, so. I don't know whether that's a little bit of conflict of
I
interest.
think
there.
I'd have a hard time with that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
So,
you want
Can't to be on there, you're trying to open your shop, but it's interesting.
Yeah.
Because I did go on I wrote BLCT, see if they had a sample application that we could use, enter anything for about a week, I haven't heard anything. So I'm like, they either working on one or they don't have one. And then I went on to ccbvermont.gov/, you can look on that, and they have the actual application forms, but you can't print them off. I try to print them,
They're
but the only way you
fillable
can do it is
forms
to fill it out
Mm,
and, you know, make up some names or something, fill it out, and then maybe print it off, but, and then send it, because they have the other one that, they have two parts to it. One is a pre-application, and then there's the one that asks you about, you know, your criminal background and all that. Malarkey. That's the Form B. And, but you can't print them off yet, so I'm tempted to write the CCB board and see if they send us a sample of that print. So if we wanted to proceed with the form, we can make it simple, but questions like on your liquor control, they ask you, have you ever been arrested for a crime, or they don't have to go into, have them give you all this detail, but they're pretty detailed, the one in Vermont, because they ask you about going back 10 years, you've been arrested or had any convictions and all that. I mean, they're getting pretty picky when you go back that far, but I suppose.
Well, I think it's parallel to the liquor situation. We're gonna be judging the personal qualities of these applicants.
Oh, yeah.
So I think we should probably be, I feel it's funny, why would we not do it?
why would we not? I mean, I don't even know why
We
it's.
can figure out the forms later, but unless we have the board formed, then we lose any ability to regulate. Right? That's what I read.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
once, you can always finish the first on the applicant, but you can't do it once they're established. That's the problem. Once you okayed it, they've got their permit to operate, and you decide, no, we're gonna opt out again, we don't want sales, well, that person is still legally bound to continue with the sales, so.
Well, I think it should be the select board. I just think it should be the select board and the select board only, and that. I'm not even sure why we keep discussing.
A lot of communities have varying opinions. I mean, some places want it to be all independent of the elected officials, other places want a mix. Some places are just doing the elected officials like we do here with liquor control. I don't think there's a consensus anywhere in the state yet about how this is gonna work, so it's really local, sort of your pleasure, really.
We can always change it if we don't like, I think if we got something in place now, that gives us the ability to regulate. We can
Right.
always say we can invite members of the public, we can do that, but if we don't have something in place, what I read here, we lose.
You were just out, yeah.
Well, I mean, just like the liquor control board, any member of the public can come in and say, well, I think you should reconsider this one because we've seen underage serving in here. that's
Right,
not being
and the
done in the
public can
state.
always.
They can
Yeah.
always have input,
Right.
Input.
Yeah.
so,
But I think it should be elected people that make the decision. I really do. I don't know how the rest of you feel.
I think that's fine.
It does make sense just because it's the formula we already use for the
Yeah,
liquor control board,
Yeah.
so.
very similar. And they're, looks like they're kind of modeling their whole thing on the way liquor is controlled.
I think eventually it would become pretty close to the same
Yeah.
procedures. The only difference is there is under the cannabis licensing, my understanding is that disadvantaged or historically disadvantaged
Right.
minority applicants and groups are going to get preference. And I think that's one of the things that they're trying to figure out how they're going to do their application process. I don't believe that we would have that obligation at the local, I'm not sure. As a local board, if that would impact our decisions or not.
So do we need to decide on this now, or?
I put it on for discussion just because it's still evolving. It seems like it's going month by month. They're not doing their first licensing from the statewide board until October. But they are accepting pre-applications now. So
If we set up a local control board, according to what I read, it said they have to apply to us first and then to the state.
Right.
Right.
it appears, right now, that's my understanding. I don't think anybody's done it, so.
Right, so if they're doing pre-applications, how does that work? If they're doing pre-applications now.
It's Scott just said, it's all evolving, they really
They
don't
haven't
know what
figured
the
it
hell
out.
they
I
want
don't
to do.
think
But-
they've even approached upon it. I don't think they know. I guess at some point they'll have to reach out to these communities and say, oh, by the way, do you have a local cannabis
Yeah.
control board? And if you do, we have 3 applicants or whatever.
Okay,
they are,
right,
Right?
right.
Yeah, so the local commissioners may be members of the municipalities legislative body, that's us. And then, if we haven't form the local control commission, no local licensing approval will be required. So just anyone that gets the state nod.
Right. I think go right to the state.
Yeah. So why, I'll just put it out there. I move that we select the Rockingham Selectboard become the Cannabis Control Commission.
I'll second that.
Yes. So, yeah, I guess, yeah, period.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion or?
He's getting lost in that one.
It's not a problem.
Until
But
the cows come home.
I think the sooner we either do one or
Here,
don't
here.
do one, then I think we're gonna be better off. I mean,
Yeah.
so at least if we establish one, we can always change the makeup.
Yeah,
If people come and say, how come you didn't have anybody on there? And you know.
Yeah.
But I don't think you want to get over more than 5 on the board. Any more than that gets too unwieldy.
Right.
No, and I mean, also, the other thing is having it is, it'll happen the same that it happens. with
Right.
Liquor control, right before it happens as our
Oh, yeah.
meetings occur, so people know when they have to have their applications in,
it's just so much simpler. And I think it gets weird if you start having unelected people on a board like this. I really do.
So you're saying that we're for to have committees?
Not committees, but to make decisions like.
I mean,
like
they're
we do.
they're the public, they're not definitely necessarily elected people. I mean, you do have public that are on committees that report back.
Sure, you
here.
have committees, but it's not the committees.
I'm not arguing with you, I'm just saying that, you know.
Right, but I mean, we
you
don't
can
have a
still make up
committee
the, you know,
deciding on these
you can
liquor
always change the
licenses.
makeup as we go
We
along.
have the board deciding on liquor licenses.
Yeah,
And
so,
elected.
An elected board decides on liquor licenses. Committees do other things. And it seems to me that elected board should decide on the cannabis
Well, I
license.
think since we do, we can certainly change it later, so.
Right.
It's not,
Well, I think maybe what I would, if you adopt this, what I would suggest is that you reference the statutory authority that you have been granted by our friends in Montpelier, which would be section 7 VSA 863B. And then furthermore, there's also 2 other areas that refer to zoning and regulations of signs and public nuisances, which are 2 other separate statutory areas that I think we should work with the DRB to help us on that process, right? Because right now, you guys don't get those types of requests here to you. But if you could potentially, because that's all evolving. So I think if you adopt this first statutory section, the next conversation we should have is with Chuck and the DRB about, let's talk about how this would work for these 2 other very specific areas. Because I think that's where you're going to get some challenges. People will be upset about advertising. They're going to be upset about locating close to some other business, right? So I think for land use and those types of things, I think are important for you guys to have a full understanding. I think working with the DRB would be very helpful for all.
And that comes up with any business anybody ever wants to put anywhere. But I mean, this is a lot more.
I think this one's
controversial.
going to get more scrutiny.
Sure,
Yeah,
sure, you know, but I
for
mean,
sure.
but that, those rules are already in place. you know.
But we're not allowed to add any zoning laws that don't exist for every other business.
Right, it has to be handled like any
So
other
that's
business.
pretty much another reason why the way it's been done for liquor.
okay, we have a motion to appoint the select board as a local cannabis commission. Motion made and seconded. All those in favor would say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Okay. You appointed yourself as a silver.
I'll have to add another line. Another line to the list of
Okay.
appointments.
Let's move along here. Review orders, bills and warrants. Take a motion.
I move that we approve orders, bills, and warrants as presented.
We hear a second.
I'll second.
Made and seconded to review and approve orders, bills and warrants. All those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. All right, agenda items for May 3rd, 2022 meeting.
I've asked Chuck to come, and I believe maybe the chair of the planning commission as well, just to give us an update on the town plan, where it is in terms of its review and update, and just a brief presentation. So the board can see this thing in its current form before it comes to you eventually in its final form. So I think that's the right time, so I've asked them to come for that meeting.
Good, I was gonna bring that up under the,
So they're working,
That last
they're working
one.
towards that, to make sure that,
Yeah, Chuck said that the ARPA process is kind of like a stress test for the town plan.
Mm.
Yeah.
One of the things that emerged was no mention of the arts in the town plan, whereas we describe ourselves as a mecca for the arts. And so when the outside consultants evaluated the various proposals in light of our town plan, stuff with the arts got low ratings.
Yeah.
Even though it's who we say we are.
Right.
So I talked to Chuck about this, he's gonna add the arts, because it's a pretty important part of our economy.
Well, when I was on the planning commission, it was part of the town plan. I don't know why they took it out.
And maybe because you weren't on the board. eh?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
he accepted that as a good suggestion. So you can see
Of
some-
course it is. My God, why would they take that out?
it is-
I raised a couple meetings ago about the bridges and looking at those, because May 11th, we're gonna be
Right.
we're gonna look at the town's recommendations for bridge project. Right now, the only one for Rockingham is actually a state bridge.
I'll have that on your
Fine.
agenda for the third, the recommendation for Bridge Street. I'm still working on a couple of details on the submission. And that has to get to Wyndham Regional by the 9th. So
Yeah.
we can run it through this board on the 2nd and still have it to them by the
But-
9th.
Yeah, there might be other, I don't know, there are other bridges that are at that fair level in town too, but I mean, Bridge Street's obviously the priority, but
You got McBride Road out there, somebody mentioned that one up there, so
But we can have that,
that's a small one, but we've been looking at that for a while.
I mean, I think we can even just put them on a list just to make the state aware
Right.
that we're concerned about them.
yeah,
They-
there's
they probably
priority
won't rate
list that
them.
I think the Wyndham Regional, they're trying to prioritize.
Yeah.
I think that's the idea, is try to get yourself in that top 3 or
Yeah,
whatever.
I mean, even if you don't get,
Right,
if they're not on the list, people don't know that they're in need of repair.
Right.
So,
Right.
so that'll be on for the 3rd.
Okay, anything else?
I
Anybody?
have just a little one. I'd like to have just a brief discussion about our clock tower.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that. I noticed it wasn't working quite still yet. But they're still having trouble trying to find.
Well, they
somebody to
did
fix it.
we got somebody up there and got the defective part out. Then our supply chain held us up while we were waiting for the motor. We got the motor and we went and reinstalled it and it stopped working again. So we are still messing with it. It's an old piece of equipment and a little cranky. So there's another piece now that has to be also ordered, which has been ordered. And so we have the new motor, and once this additional piece comes in, my understanding is it will work. So,
Did a private donor provide the colored lights? Wasn't that a gift or some sort of donation?
they did work on, they helped with some of that cost,
Okay.
some of the enhancement of that.
And that's something I would like to just talk about is who gets to control the color of the lights.
That's a hot topic.
A lot of input on it. I can assure you. So, yeah, not a week goes by and I don't hear about it, so.
Who does? Who picks the color?
At the moment, nobody, because it's stuck.
It's not working.
It's not working, but
Doesn't Chuck pick the colors?
we put it on for a couple of events. I think we put it on purple for the school at various points in time for some of their activities. And
So what do people say? They don't like the colors at all, or they want it to be a specific color?
Some people don't like the colors at
they're
all.
offended by it changing. They don't like it.
Technically, the colors are not historic, and this is supposed to be a historic building, so.
Yeah.
Some people think that it should be more, there should be like a reason for it to be a particular color, or that it should be only as a special occasion.
Yeah.
There are lots of opinions either way. There's
Right.
there's people that like the colors. So
I mean, they light up the Empire
just,
State Building all the time with various
and
colors.
that's pretty
And I-
historic building.
I guess it's just personal opinion. It's up to you guys if you want to jump in.
Wasn't it
Yeah.
orange for Halloween or something like that?
may have that at one point. Anyway, I just, it would be nice to have just like who gets to control that and just have some sort of a committee or something, I don't know. Just
Yeah,
to-
set some parameters, the protocol for it, you're right.
Yeah.
We could set certain, I mean, like graduation, it should be purple. Anytime we win a state title, purple. But have some reasoning,
Sure.
written reasoning for it. Red for Christmas or, what, but then what do you do?
So we need to appoint a keeper of the light.
Keeper of the lights,
Keeper of the
there's
light.
another
Who
time.
wants to jump up? You want to be keeper of the light, Elijah?
When do you get a job before you know it?
The good news is you get to live in the light tower.
But no, there is a point to that.
I think you'd be the ideal person, because you can talk to people all the time.
Yeah, give our time's up. And then when the guy's right,
Yeah,
go
there
see
you
the
go.
light.
Have a problem with the light, easier.
I'll put it
Yeah,
on
you mean.
discussion.
Okay, anything else that we need for next week? We've still got time, so if you hear anything, you can get ahold of Scott and we can get it on there. Review agenda items for the joint board meeting. We've got a little bit of time on that one.
Yep.
That's May. Let's go to other business. Rick?
Nothing.
So,
Yeah, when are Spartans are gonna be able to see that speed thing? I'm having complaints.
I'll have, Andy, it's ready to go. We have to put it back on the trailer and then we can put it out. So we're probably about that point in time where the
Yeah.
weather's decent enough. Okay. We
Where
can
does
start
that
that.
do so far?
We've had, well, we used it a little bit on Atkinson, and then we've got 3 pending complaints of various places out in Spartansville that people have asked us for. So
Cambridgeport Road's probably another one, I imagine.
Yeah.
A lot of places on Cambridgeport.
it's probably time.
has it been out of the Saxon River yet? I noticed there's some discussion there, village minutes there about the speeding out there. I think course thing brought it up.
Hasn't been out there. Mhm.
I know they speed down through downtown, so they walk down there and sat in the park one day and I'll tell you, you wanna hold on your hat, I mean, they come flying up and draft them.
Isn't that amazing how fast?
Oh, yeah.
And Scott, the 121 between Gage and Saxon's River is getting pretty funky. Once it warms up, we can start.
Well, they haven't been making hot mix. The plants weren't open. And my understanding is they're not open until the first week of May. I think the last time I talked to Andy.
Really?
So there's no point to do anything out there until we get hot mix.
Okay.
But it's not gonna be great, even by, I'm telling you, the deterioration that I've seen out there, hot mix ain't gonna be much. It's still gonna be a very bumpy surface.
I think what they're gonna have to do is cut and grind that top surface, it's peeling off and then put second the pavement there. I would think that's the way to fix it.
I think one of the things that we.
Top inch and a half, the coat that they put on there several years ago, so
It's gone. Yeah, and the underneath is starting to fail too. I mean,
Well, you've got
real
the
ways.
drainage issues up in some sections.
Yeah, I'm afraid that you're gonna have to do a reconstruction out there. So,
The state would help us with that, yes.
Okay.
Don't be so different.
I hesitate to say yes, but.
I'd just like to mention, did anybody happen to see the PBS show, Cannabis Question?
No,
It's on PBS the last couple of weeks. I'm sure if you have Comcast, you can get it on demand. But it's about an hour long, but it was interesting.
Is it PBS documentary?
Yeah, it's called the Cannabis Questions. Remember? It's interesting because they did have variations on medical marijuana. The interesting thing found was that people that had like epilepsy and things like that, it did help them with that type of
Oh, yeah,
stuff.
it does.
But then once they got cured of that to a point, trying to wean them off of marijuana was a major issue.
Really?
Yeah, so that was it was more stuff that you didn't hear about that now. And
Did they want to be weaned off it, or did they not want to be weaned off it?
no, they wanted to wean off it.
They wanted to, and they couldn't?
Yeah. So the actual patient was the actual one speaking to the thing about trying to get off. And it said it's very difficult. once you-
Huh, I never heard of anything like that.
Did you get a chance to?
So.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at it.
Bonnie, you have anything?
Nope.
Did you bring?
Yes.
Roger? And there is no need for an executive session, so I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Second?
motion made and seconded. All those in favor would say aye.
Hi.
And we're home free.